Good morning, Olympians. Today we are talking about Olympic posters. Every Olympic Games has a poster to advertise the games, to let people know that they're happening. So today you're gonna create, design, draw your own Olympic poster. To do that, we are gonna take a little trip throughout history to look at the posters that have come before. That way, you might get a little bit of inspiration about what you can do. So to start, we're not going to look at a poster. Instead, we are going to look at some of the art that was produced in ancient Greece. This amphora you see right here was made more than 2,000 years ago in the time of ancient Greece. And can you see what it shows? What do you think that is? Yes, it's a race in the original Olympics. Look how well it has been rendered. These are runners, sprinters. You can see the power in their stride. You can see the power in their muscles. This is because the ancient Greeks were the inventors of the Olympics, as you know already. Look how beautiful. It's two colors only, but they have managed to create a lovely sporting scene. Of course, we don't have posters from back there. We don't know if they made any posters. They would be destroyed by time. But a lot of these amphorae have survived over the centuries, and now we can see how the ancient Greeks participated and competed in their Olympics, the original Olympics. After ancient Greece civilization finished, for a longest time there were no Olympic Games. It used to happen every 4 years, but then there was a big time, thousands of years where nothing happened. Until a little over 100 years ago, when the first modern Olympic Games happened. And when they organized them to be held in Athens, which is now the capital of Greece, and back in ancient times, was the most powerful Egyptian city. The Olympic Games, of course, happen in Olympia, not in Athens, but Athenian athletes would participate in it. In this poster for the first modern Olympics, you can see that the name of the Olympic Games is written down here in French and also in Greek. Of course, they use Greek because it's the classical language of the Olympic Games, and French, so other people that don't speak Greek could understand. What is depicted here is the goddess Athena, and she is holding an olive branch, which is what the ancient athletes, the winners, would receive as a prize. They would receive an a wreath of olive branch, so they could wear as a crown as the winners. And another thing that's shown in this poster is the stadium. This is the Panathenaic Stadium, which actually is a stadium that was used by Athenian athletes in their games more than 2,000 years ago. So for these Olympiads from 1896, they fixed the stadium so they could use it, and they used it for the archery sports. So this was the first Olympics of the modern era, only 130 years ago. Then we're going to jump. There were a few more Olympics, obviously, after that, every 4 years. But we're going to jump all the way to 1948. And this is when the Olympic Games came to London. Here we see a more modern poster. Okay, and we have the name Olympic Games. Now we have the rings. By this time, the rings had been invented. And the symbol of the rings, there's 5 of them. They're called Olympic rings, and each one represents one of the continents in the world. So the continents come together, people from all over the world come together to compete. We also see the Scobulus. This is a famous ancient statue made by the Greeks more than 2,000 years ago. And it happens that this statue is held in London, in a museum in London. So that's why for this Olympics, the English put Discobolus on the front. And behind him, we can see the Palace of Westminster and two symbols of London, the Clock Tower and Big Ben. Okay, so in this poster, we're uniting, we're bringing together old symbols, classic symbols like Discobolus, with some modern symbols like the rings, as well as some symbols of the city. So this is something you might want to think about. Symbols of sport and of ancient Greece, and symbols of your city, of Diani. We're going to jump a few years again, and we come to Melbourne, 1956. This is one I like because for the first time, there's nothing really represented. There's no thing that you can see there that is an actual thing. Instead, it's abstract. It's design. It's this shape, which it's supposed to be an invitation, a three-folded invitation that is inviting the athletes to come to Melbourne to participate. But we don't see any person or thing here. It's just pure design. It's abstract shapes. These are shapes that you've learned in school. Some of you know what the names of these shapes, and it's in 3D coming towards us. But still, we have the name, Olympic Games. We have the year and date, the name of the city, and the rings that again represent the continents coming together. Okay, we have the shield of the city. This is the shield of Melbourne, and the name of the city. Okay, so these are some other things that you may want to include in your poster. The next one, we go to Tokyo, 1964. And I love this one because it's so simple. Okay, so if you go and search for the flag of Japan, you'll realize that the flag of Japan is an empty white rectangle with the only thing on it is a big red sun, which is the rising sun. When the sun comes out of the ocean early in the morning, if you go at 6:24 tomorrow to the shore, you're going to see a red sun coming up from the sea. And in Japan, that's the symbol in their flag. So here, for this poster, they went very simple. They put it the Japanese rising sun and the Olympic rings, this time all in a golden color. Also, the name of the city and the year of the Olympic Games happened. So this is a more simple design that I love. But also in this year, in Tokyo 1964, they started not only to do the main poster for the Olympic Games, but to add some posters for some individual sports that are happening during the Olympic Games. And you can see that they always put the name of the city, the main poster right here, the main poster, but then the sport, a photograph of the sport that's happening. This can also inspire you to put some ideas. These are sprinters sprinting out of the line, a swimmer doing butterfly style, and finally a torchbearer carrying the Olympic torch to start the games. So these are lovely posters. Now we go 4 years later, the Olympic Games went to Mexico. And this is an amazing design because it's so funky. Funky is something strange, right? The words of the emblem that says Mexico are radiating in all directions. And it creates this almost, it transfixes you. It kind of like puts you into a trance if you look too closely at it. It's all black and white, and it gives you the illusion of movement with all these parallel lines in two colors. Now, of course, the only color they've added is the Olympic rings here. But now again, we have the name of the city, the year, and the rings. Also, a nice touch is that these black and white lines are used by some ancient people of Mexico, some local people, some local tribe called the Huichol people of Mexico, use this pattern of black and white. So we also get this symbol of the local people of Mexico. Some other posters they made in Mexico is one with children that is beautiful. And then some for individual sports. This is the rowing. You can see the rowing happening there. And this is the gymnastics. Also Mexico, 68. And you can see the parallel lines again working. And the sports that are going to take place. Next we go to Seoul in South Korea. In 1988, it was the Olympic Games in Seoul, South Korea. You can see the rings radiating outwards. You can see the name of the city, the year, and the time it took place. Here the Olympic torch is carried bravely by a runner, symbolizing progress. In this case, they wanted to highlight happiness and prosperity. This was the first design made by a computer. And the color of light blue and bright orange, you see here, symbolizes Korea. They are the colors in the Korean flag, and Korea is known as the land of the morning calm. So this symbolizes the colors of the Korean flag. These are some of the posters for the individual sports in Seoul. So we have the basketball, Seoul 1988, the tennis, which was the first year tennis took place in an Olympic Games, and finally weightlifting. Next up, we have Barcelona in 1992. I love the simplicity of this poster, because in a very easy way, it shows us in a very dynamic way an athlete jumping over an obstacle. In this case, the obstacle is the Olympic rings, and the athlete is just a silhouette done very, very simply, very loose, happy strokes. And the blue symbolizes the Mediterranean Sea, because Barcelona is in the Mediterranean Sea. The yellow is the arms open, symbol of hospitality, like come and see us. And the red is a symbol of life. And you can see here that they faded away. They made a gradient of the color, and it looks like everything's in a little bit of movement. So it looks like there's movement, and that dynamic movement. You can see here the name of the city, the Olympic rings, and the year. These are, again, ideas you can use for your poster. These are some more posters from Barcelona. Okay, it's always the Olympic rings. Yeah, always the name. Maybe some sports happening. There's a diver here diving down. See, diving down into the pool. And the Olympic Games. It's beautiful posters. Next we have Sydney 2000. Here is a figure in motion that is formed by boomerangs, because boomerangs were used by the indigenous cultures of Australia. The white splash in the top is maybe the smoke from the Olympic torch, and is in the shape of the most important symbol of Sydney, which is this opera house. See how it looks like sails, the opera house? Well, we have it here as well, by the smoke of the torch. In the background, you can see a human silhouette running. Okay, so we have the sports, we have the symbol of the city, we have a symbol of the tribes of Australia, and we have the symbol of the Olympic rings and the Olympic torch. Everything coming together. It's a very, very clever poster. Here are some more posters from Sydney 2000 that they look sporty. This is a runner maybe, or a jumper. And here 2 wrestlers. But both of these make us remember the art of the indigenous cultures of Australia. Very thoughtful. Remember, we have indigenous cultures in Kenya. Maybe you can use the look of Kenyan indigenous cultures to design a beautiful poster. More posters from Sydney. Here again is a discus thrower that reminds us of Discobolus on the poster of which city? Yes, London, you're right. Again, a swimmer that reminds us the swimmer in Seoul, and the rowers. All things we've seen already. Classic Olympic sports. Finally, we have Athens 2004. This was the first Olympics of the new millennium, after 2000. And again, we see the crown of olives that used to be awarded to the victors in the ancient games. And a symbol of the city of Athens is the olive tree. And we've seen it already in one of our posters. Do you remember which one it was? Yes, the first modern Olympics, when Athena was holding an Olympic wreath in her hands. The crown of olive also represents peace, and the blue and white colors chosen evoke the sea and the sky in Greece. Remember Barcelona, the blue represented the Mediterranean Sea, where here also for Greece, it's a Mediterranean country, and Athens is in the Mediterranean, so that blue represents their Mediterranean color. These are some of the sports that took place in the Athens Olympics. And this color, orange and black, did we see any color like this with athletes doing sports in black and orange? All the way at the beginning of my presentation. Do you remember? Yes, the sprinters on the amphora of ancient Greece. This is what they wanted to represent. If you look back to my YouTube video all the way to the beginning, you can see them. Actually, I'm going to scroll quickly at the end so I can show you that. Now it's your turn to build your own poster. So grab a big piece of paper. Hopefully you have big sketching paper. If not, just in small one is also good. And remember to include big Diani 2020. So everybody knows that these Olympics are happening in Diani and it's the year 2020. Add your Olympic rings. It's a symbol of the Olympics. Then things you may want to include. Sports in action. Colors that evoke Diani. Which colors make you think of Diani? And an object animal that may be something that symbolizes Kenya or the South Coast or Diani. Finally, maybe a design, a look that is used by the local tribes so that it really symbolizes that this is happening in Kenya. Okay, I know you can do it. See, this design is going to remind us of our very first athletes from ancient Greece. I know you can be clever and do something like that as well. Go ahead, enjoy, make your own poster.